And we're letting April focus on the first alert weather day here in the Valley, but luckily we've got the biggest team of meteorologists here in Phoenix. So Pete joins us right now to tell us where this storm is headed this morning and the potential impact. Pete, anyone who's experienced a hurricane in Florida knows this is really scary and you have to take it seriously.
That's exactly right, Simone, especially when we're looking at the possibility of a major hurricane going into parts of Florida. I believe we're starting with some live pictures here from Florida, and this is just the beginning. Certainly the worst is still to come, as right now the National Hurricane Center is forecasting a Category 3 hurricane at landfall. It could be stronger depending on how Helene strengthens in the Gulf of Mexico. So let's go back to that track. You can see right now still a tropical storm, soon to be a hurricane, and there's not much to slow down the strengthening of the storm as it moves to the north. That's why the National Hurricane Center does have it as a Category 3 hurricane. That's a major hurricane by the time we go into Thursday afternoon, and potentially it could be a 4. We'll keep an eye on that. You can see it goes down to a 1 later Thursday into Friday as the storm starts to weaken. But when storms weaken, that's not the end of them. That's because rainfall often can become the biggest hazard with these storms. Now, of course, storm surge, gusty winds, power outages, tornadoes, all a factor with the storm. But rainfall, sometimes it can get overlooked, and it tends to linger even after the storm loses its strength. So this is 6 p.m. Thursday. This is right around the time of landfall. This is a computer forecast from one of the weather models called the European model. You can see very heavy rain for parts of the Florida Panhandle around the Big Bend area, and parts of Georgia, Arkansas, Mississippi, and even into North and South Carolina. Now, here's the thing with these storms. Watch what happens as we go into Thursday night and Friday. The rain keeps on going, and I want to focus your attention around the Atlanta area. You can see Friday morning, 6 a.m., we still have very heavy rain in the area, and it's these big metropolitan areas we need to keep a close eye on. This is Friday night. Now, a lot of the moisture is pushed to the north, but even in Tennessee, we're still seeing some lingering rainfall. So when we talk about totals, potentially some parts of the southeast here could see 8 to 12 inches of rain. We're talking about a foot of rain potentially for Atlanta down to parts of Florida, and even areas not in the zone right here will get quite a lot of rain, even 3, 4, 5 inches. So again, once these storms slow down, sometimes the fact that they're slowing can be a bad thing because that allows the rain to keep coming and coming to the same areas over and over again. Back to you.
Yeah, when those storms stall, they tend to dump that rain, and it's hard to get relief. Pete, hopefully once the storm kind of makes landfall, it will weaken, but we know that people across Georgia, as you mentioned, and Florida really need to prepare for this one. So if you've got family in the southeast region of the country, you might want to give them a call.
Well, Tess is right in the middle of that. I've been texting her back and forth. They were trying to get out of town yesterday and change their flights, but things have changed this morning, so they're sticking around but moving inland. So maybe we'll do a phone with her later. So Pete, thank you so much.
Yeah, appreciate the insight.
Yep.